Welcome back to the new season and the new title of my podcast, Your Purposeful Life with Adrianstarks. And I'm excited to share with you the new changes and concept of the show because it is here where we are helping you shape your purpose your kind of way. And speaking of way, I want to talk about some of these questions that many people have been asking me, and I'm going to address all of those today on this episode. But I'm going to just first start off by giving you these questions so you can kind of see where I'm coming from with the flow of the show. The first question is, why the wait, Adrian? Why wait 4 months to drop an episode? The second question, what changed? Why did your title change? What's going on with that? The third question, what is YPL? Its purpose. What does it stand for? Well, it stands for Your Purposeful Life, and I'll get into what that meaning is for the community. The fourth question, is it still a business or entrepreneurship podcast? That's a good question. And number 5, what to expect? What should we expect from your guests coming up and all the things coming from the YPL community on the podcast? These are all great questions that I will address. But before I do that, I want to make a very big announcement. We now have the Your Purposeful Life website available for you to go on and to listen to the most recent episodes, to download them onto your favorite platform of choice. We have the community that's there too. You can sign up for that so you can get all the updates on the guests that are coming out, what's happening around the community, Q&A sessions, and the takeaways from the podcast that I'll be having. Go to yourpurposeful.life to get that onto your platform of choice and to follow us on social media. It's going to be one heck of a time here with the YPL universe is what I'm calling it. But first, let's go ahead now and let's talk about some of these questions. Why did I wait so long for this podcast episode to be released? Well, I had to sit back for a while and think about where I wanted to go energetically with this show. A lot of you may not know this, but I started this podcast back in 2019. This was before the whole podcast wave hit. I think everybody now is doing podcasts, even cats, dogs, horses, birds, you name it. But this was before it got really popular. And even during that time, I was looking at ways of taking the podcast to different levels, ascensions of communication. And my method is this. I truly believe that podcasting is the art of conversation under the umbrella of interviewing. And that's how it should be. In 2019, the title of the show was The Purposeful Life Show. And what you'll find as you go back and listen to some of these episodes, because I didn't take them down, I want you to see the change and evolution of the show as well as the change and evolution of me as a person, as a human being, because it's all about change and growth. But you'll notice the context of the show was a bit different during that time. It was about entrepreneurship and business owners because that was the group that I was rolling with. That was the people that were surrounding me a lot. So it made perfect sense to interview those type of people. Now, this is not to take away from the episodes coming out now with the podcast. It's really not. All these episodes are still relevant. So you can go back and listen to them if you want to be inspired by business, entrepreneurship ideas, and flow. And even now to this day, with the new guests coming on, we're still talking about business and entrepreneurship. We're just not doing it directly. These people are running businesses, but we're talking more about the human mess, the human being behind what they do, because that's how you bring purpose into your life, by understanding the actions you're taking. But during that time, the podcast went into a couple of rephasings. You would see the cover art change a bit. You would see different things come up. And as time went on, I started getting, how can I say this? I started getting bored with the conversations on the podcast because they all seemed redundant. And I realized at that time that I wasn't excited anymore and I wasn't curious. And when I don't get curious, then the conversations become quite dull. And so I really needed to take a look at where I was going energetically with this show and how could I improve it? How could I bring more of myself through the show to you? So about a year ago, I started thinking about changing the show. And then it hit me that, wow, if I'm going to change this show, I need some help. And so I brought on a team that's helping me, Sharon and Jordan, which I love you both. You're both amazing. And we changed the title of the show to Your Purposeful Life, because the show is not about having just an answer for purpose. Because here's the thing, purpose is different for everyone. It's just like success. It is not a one-size-fits-all approach. And on this show, we're bringing on guests and people that have different ways of using their unique purposes in their lives to bring about change in their environments and on the planet. And this is what I mean by being purposeful. So that's what this show is about. It's about bringing on a variety of guests with so many ideas and topics that can be that topic for you and your purpose. And this podcast is about you. It's not about me. It's about what you're coming to learn and what you're coming to be inspired by. So that's why I call it Your Purposeful Life now. And the purpose of this community is to bring about change within you, because everything starts with you first. And you may be thinking, well, I know my purpose. I haven't lost myself. I'm good. This podcast is about shaping your purpose, redefining it, identifying it, and falling in love with it again. And more importantly, reminding yourself of it from time to time as you get wrapped up in the human mess called everyday living. And it's about how you energetically walk into your life and how you do things. And this will bring you a sense of joy, happiness, peace, and well-being. And this is what we need in order to grow and thrive in these environments. So that's what I wanted to bring to this podcast, with some level of a unique style and approach. The fourth question that was asked to me was, is this still a business entrepreneurship podcast? And like I said before, these episodes are all still relevant. So if you are looking to be inspired by business conversations, by all means, go in and binge on these episodes of the past. They still have those gold nuggets that are timeless. Please do that. But understand that this podcast is not about bringing people on to talk about their business or what they've achieved or their clients. There's tons of business podcasts out there about that, and that's good for them. But that was something I didn't want this podcast to be anymore. I wanted this podcast to be about the human being who is magnificent in the things they're creating through the purpose of their lives. And a lot of times, that purpose is in the form of business and entrepreneurship and other great things. And it may just be on a 9-to-5 job. Who knows? Either way, they're doing something that has attracted my attention, my curiosity to bring them onto the show. And that's where we're headed now. What to expect from this show is a lot of education. You're going to learn a lot about not only purpose, but why people do what they do. You're going to learn a lot about different things from the earth, the planet, from society, from culture. I have people coming on ranging from earthworm advocates to musicians to people talking about global changes going about in the planet, people who have been a part of certain movements and environments where they grew from it, such as communist type of movements where they learned so much and how they're different people now. I have people on who have been arrested. I have a gentleman that's coming on. He was arrested in Beijing for 10 days, and that sparked something different inside of him. We have people coming on talking about all types of things, and I'm not going to give it all in one shot here on this episode, but every theme is about what was their purpose. How did they get themselves out of that situation and create something better for themselves? And why are they continually doing this to help improve not only their lives, but society and the planet in general? So this podcast is really a lot about my personality now. And what you'll find from me is a lot of vulnerability in this podcast. I'll share a lot of my stories, my background that you haven't heard before, because in the previous segments of the podcast that I did in the earlier portions of the year in the season, that's season 1, there was a lot of me trying to be just, so serious and the astute philosophical guy who knows all these things. And I still know these things, but I'm also this guy now that, hey, I'm going to tell you, if I don't know something, I don't know it. I'm going to laugh. I'm going to make fun of myself at some things. And I'm bringing back that vulnerable humor side of me that I put away for so long. And that's what's coming now. You're getting this new energy from what I've learned in the last 2 to 3 years that now has compiled into these purposeful actions of bringing people on and also having a show that is designed just for you. And with this show, it's going to be something magical. We're in the midst now of creating a private group for the YPL community, where I'll be doing some Q&A sessions once a month that'll be occurring later on in the beginning of the year. And you're going to get a lot of valuable tools, a lot of ways of reaching out to me and to getting more of my insight on things and to learn more about how you can improve wherever you are. And even you get some hints and clues from the guests and ways to reach out to them and connections. And within the community itself, you may meet some really cool people. And this is not a dating community, okay? So don't come in here thinking you're going to flirt with people and things of that sort. It's not that kind of community, but it's a community of connection. And if you have people here that you resonate with, then good, reach out to them and be professional about it, be respectful about it, but you'll be able to find yourself being a part of something, because I truly believe that as human beings, we're all meant to be social. We're all meant to connect in some kind of way. And that's what I want to build with this YPL community, starting with the podcast. The podcast is not your everyday podcast. I'm not rambling on this podcast. I'm not just asking a Q&A question. I am really presenting to you an opportunity to be engaged in something that can be life-changing. And no matter where you are in your life, there's always a conversation that can be the conversation that can change some things for you. And no matter where you are in your life, there's always ways to improve. There's always ways to get better. You know, it reminds me of the trip I took to Italy back in 2018. I was in Florence, Italy, and I remember going on this trip, and we were looking at a lot of the great statues and sculptures and paintings of the artists like Michelangelo and Leonardo da Vinci. If you haven't been there, then you should go there. And also, this is to digress a little bit here, I'm learning a little bit of Italian. So, io capisco un po' l'italiano, which means I know a little bit. And I'm learning how now to express myself in that way. But anyway, I digressed. Going back to my trip, I learned that there was a thing that Michelangelo would do with all his famous pieces, particularly the David. He would leave the top of the head curly on all of his sculptures. And the reason why was because he wanted to show people that nothing is ever finished. There's always more work to do. And on this podcast, there is always more work for you to do. And let this podcast be something that you can sit down and listen to and just go, that's right. Take some notes. Or you could be driving and realize that, man, I should really try to approach this situation differently based off this conversation I'm hearing right now. It could be a podcast that can make you cry a little bit because it's tapping into that part of you emotionally that you have shut down. It could be a podcast that gives you that one little piece that you've been missing that can shift everything for you. I truly believe that. And my mission on this podcast is to bring people from all walks of life. This is not just a podcast for one niche. I want this podcast to be the niche for you whenever you need it. That's what this is about. And you're going to find out more about the planet, about people, about society through this podcast than you've ever done before, because that's how our purposes are aligned. We're all connected energetically on this planet. And your purpose is going to be different for you, but your purpose can align with someone else's purposes or someone else's purpose that can actually be the tool that you need to take you one step closer, to help you, to guide you, because we can't do it alone. This podcast is one that I've been working on for quite some time, and I'm excited to share this episode with you. And I'm also excited to share my next episode coming up the following week with Kathy Nesbitt. She's a worm advocate. And we're going to talk about the power of worms, the power of laughter, and how happiness can help prolong our lives. So she's combined both happiness and worm advocacy into this wonderful conversation. And I'm excited to share this with you. One last thing for you here. What is your purpose? What do you want to be purposeful towards? Purpose is not something that you go out and find like the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, because no one has found that pot of gold. And if they have, then you just let me know. Purpose is inside of you. And we often at times shut it down because we're told to be serious. We're told to be realistic. We're told to be more in the state of reality. And the thing is that purpose is something that we all can reshape, we can re-identify with. So what is your purpose? And are you purposeful about your everyday actions? That's what I want to know. Let this podcast be that podcast for you to reshape your purpose your kind of way. I'm looking forward to having you be a part of the YPL community. Go to our website, yourpurposeful.life, and I look forward to seeing you there and connecting with you further. Have an amazing day, everyone, and let's be purposeful about doing that.